Victorum gaming fans and Hail Caesar fans. We're back with another video covering factions for the game, and we're continuing on, basically kind of going chronologically as the book does, the first book in the series. So we're going from basically as far back in history as possible, so still about 3000 BC, and slowly working our way forward. So this army today we're going to take a look at is the Nubian army, and not a very large army as far as diversity of units or anything, and personally would not recommend this, like, if you're a beginner, if you're thinking about like more of like heads up clashes, more like sort of like competitive type of a game. This is definitely a harder army to play with and win with, but if you're just looking to have some fun, beer and pretzels, and maybe just fight them against like their historical opponents, definitely an interesting and colorful list. So hopefully you like bows and skirmishers, because that's a whole lot of what your army is going to be. But so the Nubian army, for those who are not aware, or history buffs or whatever, but you should be, because you're thinking about playing this game or already played this game. So basically roughly 30th to 15th centuries BC. As it says here, Kush lies to the south of Egypt and is known as Nubia in later times. Its people are primitive, barbarous, and exceptionally fierce, so much so that they are often recruited as mercenaries by the Egyptian pharaohs. So things like the Magi, the kingdom of Kerma, the kingdom of Kush, lots of searches there you can do to get some inspiration and details for like your painting and modeling parts of these guys. So for the most part, I do think Warlord produces some models for these. There's certainly others out there in 28 mil, but again, certainly you can play the game at other scales. But as far as I know, there isn't much in the way of plastics for these guys. So you're definitely going to be dealing with a lot of metals, but if you're okay with that, that's fine, of course. So the army does have some requirements, and again, as I said, hopefully you like archers and skirmishers, because that is a whole lot of what you're going to get. So skirmishing archers have to be at least 25% of the army there, so at least a quarter of the units in the army must be skirmishers with bows. Fortunately, most of your troops are just that. Divisions have to be 4+ units, so and must be led by a commander. Guard must form part of the general's division. We'll talk about that. That's the first unit up, and really the guard is pretty good here. And then skirmishers per division is basically, as I say here, 100% of infantry or all. And what that really means is this here. So divisions may contain as many skirmisher units as they contain non-skirmisher infantry, or alternately, they may contain all skirmishers. So a couple of different requirements to keep in mind when building a force for the Nubians. So if we take a look at their army, and don't be alarmed, but that is actually it. So you get a couple different units here. And they're not necessarily a close combat centric army. It's a little bit deceptive. Again, you have a lot of skirmishers and certainly a little bit of punch in close combat, but not really much in the way of staying power. So you're definitely going to be hoping to get a lot of shooting accomplished and put casualties through, to then hopefully, when you do get those charges off, that is what will tip the balance for you and hopefully send enemy units running away. So we start off with that Nubian Guard unit. So it's a light infantry unit with bows and javelins. Clash and sustained is okay, nothing great there, but they do have excellent ranged ability. Short and long is at 3. And as you can see for the whole army here, we're just going to kind of summarize this real quick. You're noticing a lack of armor. Again, morale save, armor save, ultimately like the same thing here, really. But everything's either a 6+ or you don't have anything at all. So protracted fights, a war of attrition, that's not what this army is going to do for you, and you'd be hard pressed to try that kind of strategy. Stamina's 6 across the board, so pretty much normal size units there. They do have eager marksmen and valiant marksmen, especially important to get those push that range damage through. Basically, that's your give a reroll, if I'm not mistaken. And then 27 points per unit, so you do pay some solid points for that compared to some of the other things in the army. But and it does have to be part of your general's division, so really loading up on as many of these guys as possible is, I feel like, a good option there. Gives you a little bit of combat ability with just super solid ranged. And again, out of the whole list, the only thing that has marksman, so something to consider. Then you have, which again is almost exactly the same unit, but just a little bit different here. So Nubian light infantry with mixed javelins. and bows. Again, stats are basically the same here, although ranged drops off, or long range drops off, right? It's only a 1, and they only have the eager ability here, but you do save some points, only 21 per unit. Moving on, here's where we start getting into basically the real close combat ability of the army. That's with this other light infantry unit. So Nubian light infantry warband with mixed javelins and bows. Again, you're noticing a theme here. Lots of javelins, lots of bows. So first off, across the board here, they start at 22 points a unit. They just have eager. Again, 6+ on the morale save. Only a 2 and a 1 for short and long range. And sustained is 5. Again, these guys are not here to win a war of attrition, but they do have a 7 for their clash value. So that's that first round of combat. So that definitely gives them a little bit of extra punch. So again, hopefully you've softened up the enemies with all of your ranged firepower, that when you do get this charge off and clash, hopefully you can push it over the edge, basically. You do have 2 ways to upgrade the unit. You can make them wild fighters, which does give you that extra punch in combat. Again, the stats don't change there, but it is 3 extra points a unit. Or you can also make them frenzied, but only 1 unit. So, you definitely want to make sure that unit gets to get into combat and do its thing. Stats, again, stay the same, but they basically then get frenzied, charge, eager, and wild fighters as well. But that one's +6 per unit. So, but keep that in mind. And again, that's only 1 unit, so you might even consider making that a large unit. Then we get to the skirmishers, basically, and you have 2 different flavors here. You basically have the javelin option or the bow option. The javelin option does have a little bit of a better clash ability, although we say better, it's just a 5, because for both of these guys, they drop down to a 4, and they do have solid short range ability, no long range ability, no armor, just eager, 18 points a unit. And then the other flavor is the bow option, which, again, if you are running out of points, depending on what size game you're playing, of course, and all that, and you want some really solid long-range ability outside of your general's unit or division, the skirmishers with the bows there give you that 3 for long range as well. Again, no armor, not that they need it. They should be focusing on their missile ability. Only a 4 across the board in close combat. So again, these guys are going to fold pretty quick. And they're just eager, and they're 20 points a unit. So really only 2 more points to get that really cool long range ability. So again, lots and lots of bow fire and javelin fire. So these guys, you're going to be rolling a ton of dice in the shooting phase, and hopefully getting those casualties to accumulate before you do have to dip into close combat. Now, they can do a little bit of work in close combat across this army, but again, other armies, by and large, will have better combat abilities than you. Again, no cavalry here. That seems pretty clear. And again, 6+ morale saves or no morale saves, so you will not last long in combat here. You're going to reach your stamina thresholds, and then you're going to have to do well to stay in the fight, basically. And then to make matters even a little bit more difficult for you, so on the commander side, again, you have to have 1 per division. The general does have a leadership of 8, which is solid. It's not great. Ideally, a 9 would have been great there, but all other commanders have a leadership of 7, so that's definitely going to make it a little bit rough for you. So so again, if this is just like a fun army that you're trying to collect and play with, by all means, no worries here. But if you're trying to play a little bit more like a heads up style and kind of want to test your abilities in a slightly more competitive aspect with the various armies in the game, this is definitely not for a beginner to do well with. So really, you have to definitely go in with a great game plan, battle plan, and really know what you're doing to make the most of your army, because certainly on the stats side here, none of these units really shines all that much or excels all that much. And it certainly is a different play style than a lot of the other lines that use big blocks and chunks of heavy, medium infantry and cavalry and so on and so forth. So this is definitely, if you want a challenge, this is definitely playing the game on hard mode. So yeah, that's about all we really need to say for the Nubians. And we'll again encounter some other similar armies as we progress through the various lists here. But all told, still a really cool army. And again, from the painting modeling side, lots of neat options there, depending on how much sort of background research you do want to do on it. As always, is a game like this, you can go as deep as you want on the hobby and modeling side. It certainly presents you with a lot of options. And again, as far as the models themselves, again, I do think Warlord produces a smallish range of them, but I think they're mostly metal. And so if that's not your thing, you might look for other armies that you can maybe get in plastic, or check out some other companies that do produce models as well. But again, I think by and large, there's not much out there as far as plastics go for these guys. So you might have to do some kit bashing and stuff like that if you do find access to plastics. So anyway, that has been the Nubian army. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, and then stay tuned for more content for Hail Caesar.